And welcome back, everyone, to the afternoon and final session, the wrap up of the annual Producers Conference webinar conference. What are we calling it anyway, Mary?
Annual Producers Conference, right?
Yeah. Our next presenter is the inimitable Jerry Carlson. Long life career in agriculture and mostly in the publishing business. And I think Jerry and I first touched base way back in the 80s sometime when I first started to dabble around in tillage, and he was intrigued at that time. I think you had a little more hair at that time, Jerry. Could that be a fair assessment?
You've not discovered the fertilizer that will fix that.
Oh, yes, I take a daily dose, right? It's very interesting about the hair thing because both of my grandparents on both sides were bald before they were 50, completely. I mean, gone.
You must have had a pair of recessive genes, and you got it.
Yeah, so I grabbed onto the other genes. Jerry, we've got your bios on the Soil Regeneration Unlimited Facebook page, which addresses the conference agenda and several links there, which we'll continue to post to, by the way. And anticipation that we're going to do this again if the Lord tarries and makes a way. Perhaps next time we'll actually do it in a physical location so people can actually shake hands and look fellows like Jerry Carlson in the eye. Jerry, why don't you fill in the blanks a little bit for everybody?
Good.
On the kind of work that you and your boys are about, and we'll cut you loose here.
Fantastic. I'm a journalist by nature and by trade, spent most of my career in Farm Journal and Pro Farmer. And after retiring from Pro Farmer and doing seminars with AgriEnergy and other firms on our own renewable farming seminars, we got intrigued by meeting people like Jim that have a real missionary spirit for agriculture, and those are the enjoyable folks to work with. And somewhere along the line, we came across a product which is really a huge aid to foliar feeding, and accidentally perhaps began selling some of it and researching with it. And so we'll tell you about that. And it's a small part of the big picture that we work in, which is simply a way to make foliar feeding more effective. And by now you probably had a chance to scan down these 12 points we're going to make, but what we'll do is go through these real fast and then look at some results that we've been able to achieve by using what we call Wake Up, primarily Wake Up Summer, which is a stronger surfactant in foliar feeding. So here we go. First question, why rely on foliar feeding? Most of the discussion you've seen has been on getting a tremendous microbiome going, and that is critical. But also when it comes to nursing the crop through the season and giving it little boosts, especially with trace elements, foliar feeding can be very effective. And I'm a big enthusiast for somebody who would have a high clearance sprayer to do your own spraying. I think that's one of the most underused implements on the farm. So I'm quoting here Dr. Roch Gosson, who is one of the real gurus of foliar feeding. More control, less risk, and with SAP analysis now you can be much more precise with what's needed out there. So that's a rationale. It's effective, efficient. You don't have to guess as much as we used to have to guess. It's a physical and chemical process and not one that depends quite as much on the microbiome to get the crop provided with the nutrients you need. What we do is a small part of that. We're trying to be the delivery system that gets your nutrients into the leaf. It's not what goes on the leaf, but what's into it. And we started out back in 2009 with applying nitrogen. We learned that we could get nitrogen on a leaf But how do we get it into the leaf? When we put our surfactant carrier with it, we found that we could clear coat that leaf, and every part of the leaf then became a sponge. One thing that we have to do then, beyond just the surfactant role, and there are 1,000 surfactants out there, is to remove temporarily that little waxy coating that's on the top and bottom of the leaf. And that's what allows the nutrient penetration into the palisade cells and into metabolism. So that's the second thing that the Wake Up does, is temporarily lifts that little layer. You often hear that spray materials go through the little openings of stomata, but we need to get the spray material all the way through every part of the leaf, top and bottom, both sides. And here's how we do it. There's probably 4 or 5 different versions of colloidal micelle products out there. We have specialized ours to be very effective and very cost effective with trace elements and other NPK and NPK nutrients. And here's how it works. It's worth spending just a little time on this because it's unique. That Wake Up colloid, you see the little speck there, is about 5 times the size of a water molecule. It has a powerful negative charge. And this is what comes in the jug. It looks like an amber honey, but it's really a collection of colloids. And when those are put into water, the negative colloid surrounds itself with a little ball bearing of water molecules like this. And the positive sides, the hydrogens are inside. The exterior of the shell becomes a negative charge. And what that does then is 2 things. The micelles tend to repel each other. So it's like a sprayer tank full of little ball bearings that are Scotty dogs that repel each other, and they become very slippery. They have a very low surface tension because they don't attract each other like water molecules normally do. And the negative charge on the outside of that micelle attracts positive ions, whether they're nutrient ions or fatty acids or waxes. It latches onto them. So that's the function of a micelle. It completely changes the physical nature of water. And this is very well studied, very well analyzed. You can see that a negative charge right in the middle of the micelle creates a positive attraction, attracts the positive ions all the way around it. So that's what you see happening in water when you put spray materials into your spray solution. Now, when that mixture hits a plant and begins to move into metabolism and comes to cells, individual cells in the plant, those micelles begin to unfold, and the water moves and the nutrients move through the microtubules into cell metabolism. So we are a transporter. That's the main thing we do. We get stuff into a cell and into the cell nucleus. Microtubules were discovered not too long ago, and the guy who did it got a Nobel Prize for that. But this is the true story of how nutrition gets into the cell. Dr. Gosson points out that when you put sodium, potassium, magnesium, manganese, any positive ion, these have different sizes. And of course, a smaller size like sodium can move into the cell more rapidly and through those microtubules. But we help move and carry all of those elements into the cell. That's our job. We're a surfactant, transporter, carrier, softener. We're the delivery system. With water, Dr. Gosson points out that it takes maybe 2 hours to get 70 to 80% of most nutrients into the plant. We can do that much faster if Wake Up is in the tank. Once inside the metabolism and into the palisade cells, Wake Up Summer, Wake Up Spring, both of our products remain active. Much of the colloidal micelle structure is still there, and it accelerates sugars out of the leaf. because of this slippery structure and low surface tension inside. And that can pay off big. Now, here's some data. The best data we have is on carrying traces into the plant. And trace elements in water alone, here's the green bar, the light green bar. When you add trace elements plus wake up, much more of the nutrient mix gets into the plant. We can show this over and over again. Every time we've done this, we've seen this same reaction with only one or two exceptions. And those were probably trace elements which had some other kind of a combination, such as a phosphite, which makes them perform differently. But every time we put Wake Up Summer with a trace mix or a nutrient mix, we get more of it into the cell. Internally then, and Jim Porterfield did this research for us, showed in corn that with Wake Up in the spray, and he used C90 and some nitrogen, we move the sugars out of corn leaves more readily and down to the roots. And there was a 71% increase in sugars in the roots. I think it was 45 hours after the tank mix was applied. So what happens if you can get more sugars down to the roots more quickly, you begin to really feed and amplify the benefit of all the microbiome around the root, and you develop a powerful root. And this shows up right away. If you get out there with your spade, spray at V2 and with Wake Up Spring, sugars migrate to the root more rapidly. You get a tremendous bloom of mycorrhizal activity and bacterial activity in the root. That shows up. You can dig it up with a spade. Here's evidence on the right side there of a kind of a rhizosphere, rhizotrome that we built, just a big bank that we grew roots in, and you can see how those corn roots performed when we fed them with Wake Up Spring, and they just punched down roots 5-6 feet. That's just another example of it, with and without. This is another Porterfield bit of data. He did some late summer tillage radish, and there was a 25% increase in the weight of the root when we applied Wake Up and C90. The rest of this is just kind of mechanical. We like to see a lot of water on the field. Medium to coarse spray is okay. You don't need to drift. You don't need to mist. Anything that hits the leaf is going to spread out if it has Wake Up in it. People that think you can fog and get better coverage are only partially right. You know that water vapor is probably the finest mist you can put on a leaf, and you can see that water vapor will just form droplets if it has normal surface tension of about 70 dynes. We want to drop that surface tension to about 30. The first spraying we ever did was on a misty morning. There was dew on the soybean leaves, and we began spraying this stuff. This was in 2009, and we realized that by the time we got back from a half-mile trip down and back, that the soybean leaves that we'd sprayed were just dry, and that meant that the spray mixture had been absorbed, not evaporated, because the dew right next to the sprayed leaves was still there. So that tells you the speed of absorption. In fact, we like to get out in the morning and spray in the morning. Dr. Gassan pointed out that morning and evening is about equal as a spraying opportunity. But since they are equal, we prefer the morning, because that means your elements are going to be in the leaf when the sunshine arrives and metabolism starts. And here's what we like to see on a soybean leaf. Just a clear coat, nice glossy coat. We recommend, of course, the best water you can get. We prefer reverse osmosis water. We use the Personova structuring system here, and we find we can cut our spray material requirements, nutrient requirements, substantially Keith Schlapwell, who many of you know, does the same thing. RO, Personova, and he can cut his crop protection products down substantially, nutrients much more effectively. SAP testing has been very well covered, but we really think that that's going to be extremely useful in finding what you need to put on. Like I say, all we do is just make whatever you put on more effectively translocated into the plant. Follow your pH instructions. That's one question we get. Do you need to put pH reduction in when I'm spraying? We just say follow the manufacturer's instructions. And just do good research, count, measure, know what you're doing, know what results you get. And we like to see number 12, very, very important to us. Any kind of surfactant doesn't have the skull and crossbones on it. We use the same product in the spray tank that we use in the kitchen to wash vegetables, so we're safe. Now, that's just the mechanics of foliar feeding, what Wake Up does, now the results and products. And this was some work back in 2011. You can actually see the green areas in the field where we sprayed, just the strips. A gallon of 28% Kugler KQXRN on corn at this stage. I wound up with 6 bushels gain in the fall when it was just with water. Almost 12 bushels when we put 5 ounces of Wake Up with it. Bob Stride had us do some testing with some exotic traces that he brought back from Brazil and elsewhere. And when you average all these out, with water on corn, the benefit was about 4 bushels. When you put Wake Up with the spray mix and average it out, it was about 7.3. So it's about an 80% gain usually. Sometimes it's double. Now we're doing some really intriguing things with growth promotants. A new one that we're testing is going to be available on a beta basis this year is called Lignition. And Wake Up works with Lignition. We had this kind of results with the 126 bushel. That was 214 on some really lousy soil with control strips, 129 with Lignition alone as a foliar. But when we put Wake Up with it, 158. We got a tremendous kick out of this product when we mobilize it with Lignition. This last season, 13 bushel, 20 bushel, 20 bushel on different applications of Lignition with Wake Up. Hal Brown in Indiana got a 42 bushel gain in corn yield when he put Lignition and Wake Up together. So we're coming back to revisit what happened there. Now, other products, one that we really like, Jim, that you introduced us to with Dan Pavich's Symbiosis. Here's some results we had. Symbiosis does really well on its own when we used it in furrow. And surprisingly, when we put Wake Up with it in furrow, that gave it another little kick. So there's quite a bit of mobility brought into a product in furrow when you put Wake Up with it as well as foliar. Same thing happens. Let's see, I'm hitting next, and what's happening here? It says change presentation. Is that something I should do?
No, you should be okay, Jerry, with the next button. Let me see if I can move it for you.
It says change presentation. Oh, there we go. All right, it's just a little slow to respond. All right, more data. Symbiosis, this was Symbiosis AGX in furrow on corn, and Symbiosis was good, but Wake Up kicked it up a bit. Vitazyme has been around a long time. Pretty much standard on soybeans. You can get with a foliar about a 5 bushel kick, and put Wake Up with it, another nudge. And let's see, we're jumping around here a little bit. It's responding slowly, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, we haven't seen the Vitazyme, you said Vitazyme, right?
Yeah, Vitazyme. That's been around a while.
Yeah, we're still, at least I'm still stuck on the Symbiosis AGX.
Yep.
We haven't seen that next slide yet.
Oh, you are?
Okay.
Megamag should be up now, right?
Yep, that's up now. Okay.
This is another one you brought us. We checked it out. We put Megamag and fish together, and we did not put Wake Up with this on the 2x2 trial, but a nice response. A nice response on beans, a 5-bushel response. So I'm really enthused about 2x2 and in-furrow with biological and products like the Mega Mag and fish. So I hit the next button here, and I'm just going to wait for it this time to shift. Anybody have a question while this thing is moving on?
Does Wake Up get an OMRI pass, or is it a non-certified order?
We've not found a way to make it organic, unfortunately. There is a corn derivative in there. We haven't found a source of organic corn, and the process by which we can qualify it as organic. There is hope in Europe. There's a version of this which we're working with that might be organically certified here as equivalent, because it is certified as organic in Europe. Now somehow we're back to Vitazyme here, but just be patient with these rollovers. I hit my next button, and we're almost through this. Anyway, there we go. Bob Strite mentioned his BioImprove in a previous presentation. Here's the plot that he referred to. Jim, that's one of our grandsons here, and the treatment was a quart of BioImprove, a quart of 42 phi, and the point we want to make is that was very helpful in this plot. 3.2 bushel response with the products alone, but a 11.16 response in bushels when we put Wake Up with it as a foliar. And that was applied post-pollination. So essentially what we're saying is that Wake Up makes good things much more systemic and gets it into the cell, into the metabolism, and helps it do its job a little better. We're kind of slowing down here with the flip over.
I think we got bogged down a little bit yesterday at about the same time.
That's probably just throughput time, getting everything through the web. But there you go. In 2014, Bob brought us some BioImprove, the first version of it. We didn't get it on until August 26th. We did get a 10 bushel gain on some really, really badly infected Goss's corn. The BioImprove just kept it green longer, about a week and a half longer. We picked up on 6 reps, 10 bushel, and then again, 17 bushels when we put Wake Up with it on 6 other reps in the same field. So it's just kind of a same old story. If you have a good foliar product or a good in-furrow product, Wake Up will generally make it much more systemic and therefore more effective. Okay, I've got my next button pressed. I'm just waiting for it to roll over. Probably won't help me to goose it. It'll just put another nudge in there.
Yeah, everything is slowing very, very much, Jerry. I can't even get it to scroll through names over on the left side of the page.
Oh.
So, yeah, we are definitely we're definitely tying up some bandwidth, or it's being tied up before we get to it.
Yeah, very likely.
One question I would have, as long as we've got good audio feed, and that is, you've shown us some very significant yield gains. How much does an application of, say, 5 ounces of Wake Up cost?
Well, $3.50. We have been trying to get enough volume together over the last 4 or 5 years so that we can go back to our providers and negotiate larger quantities. And now we've been able to bring the price. 6-8 years ago, it was $155 a gallon. This year we'll have that brought down to 90 retail. So that's going to make this kind of a no-brainer. It'll be about $3.50, under $4 for putting the best premium surfactant out there on an acre. So we think the odds are
Jerry.
good.
Yeah, I think we may be advised to drop your webcam. It could be the video is taking a lot of this.
I'll kill that.
Okay.
Very good. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, let's give me another signal here. Maybe I can get next again.
Jim, the other thing we can do if it continues to give problems is switch to phone as opposed to mic.
Yeah.
Both those steps will save bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
We're within 8 or 9 of the end here. We could just close this show out because you've seen most of the data, and the data that we've got from here on out is just another example of field performance with and without. And you've got the hearts of it right now. You've got the technology and enough evidence to show that it works. That's all we need to say, really.
Okay. The floor is open for questions.
Oh, there we go. Hey, it caught up. Hager Energy Accelerator is another good foliar product. We gave it another little kick. Well, here we go. I think we're homing on the end. Back in 2012, drought year, bad field, just under this, potassium deficiency everywhere. We got after it. Top shows the deficiency areas, and then 11 days later, most of that yellow flash was gone. The potassium deficiency has been covered up with new growth. You can see that from a powered parachute. You can see the strips across the field, and you can see it in the SPAD meter went from 20 to 50 in treated areas. The more you sprayed and foliar throughout the season, the more the yield went up. So foliar feeding works. 2013, same story, same field. Potassium deficiency, we sprayed every other 6 rows just as a demonstration. You can see it all the way through harvest. You can see it in the combine monitor. The green bars were sprayed 6 rows, all sprayed right next to it. On every, I would say that's statistically significant. One real fun result we had, one of our clients sprayed an entire field except for 16 rows with this combination. That was a microbial stimulant. It was in-furrow, in-furrow. He had in-furrow 16 ounces of a microbial stimulant called Generate. He had some lignition, and he had Wake Up Spring, and he had some starter, all those 4 things. So he had a nutrient, he had a microbial stimulant, he had another PGR, and he had spring. And this strip on the left side was a 16-row strip without all these things. and the combine monitor indicated about a 30 to 40 bushel drop in yields. The big blotches over on the right side were bad sandy patches. So the comparison was much more relevant to look at the left side of this field on that 16-row strip. So big difference, again, with in-furrow, and that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to stay off camera as well. Philip from France. What's the European product that has organic approval? You are in contact. Do you know anything about what he's talking about here, Jerry?
No, I'm not sure what product that Philip has.
Has organic approval. Are you in contact?
Oh, I see the question. Philip, I read you. What's the European product that has organic approval you're in contact with? It's called Nutrigreen. And we're working with the developers of that on marketing here, and we've done some testing. It's not as good. It's probably about half as effective as a carrier, as Wake Up, but even half as good would be pretty useful, I would think, if we can do something for the organic folks to get organic foliar nutrients into the leaves. So there you go, Nutrigreen. You got it, Suzanne. Plug that in for me.
Now, Jerry, you said you are having difficulty getting OMRI certification here, and it's because of a corn constituent, something you're deriving from corn oil.
Yes, it's from a fermented corn product, right? But we've not found anybody that makes this this material from organic corn, and we're not big enough to say, all right, here's a semi-load of organic corn. Do this in a separate plant, and meet all the OMRI requirements. So we haven't just struggled with that. We've got other opportunities that we haven't gone for that market yet.
Okay. Philip has a follow-up question concerning the company who is actually producing this Nutrigreen. I presume Nutrigreen is a brand name.
Yeah, that's a brand. And I could probably grab a little jug of that and put it on camera here. Maybe I tell you what, I'll answer that question without holding up the show here. I will put it on the tab momentarily as the meeting progresses, but I don't want to delay the game.
That's okay. It's okay. So you're going to post the name of the company that?
Yeah, I'll post that here on the sidebar momentarily.
Or you can put it in notes and then it'll be published.
Okay.
Jerry.
Very good.
You know where those are under the More tab?
Yep.
All right. Very good. Very good. Other questions, other concerns, interest in Jerry's work? Now, Jerry, you've always been very liberal with your time and energy in terms of investigating various things I've sent to you. Does your product sales support all of this replicated research work sufficiently, or do you need additional support to do these replicated trials?
Well, we've never gone into the commercial research business. We figured that if there's a product out there that is good on its own, we can make it perform a little better. And if we can show what we can do for a good product, that's really all that's how we can show and demonstrate the effectiveness of what we do make. Mm-hmm. That's the game plan.
Okay, and you folks are involved in the manufacture of the product, is that correct?
We do that. Yeah, our son has the company which does the manufacturing of the product. Eric and Janine have the firm Generation Ag. They are the manufacturers, and Renewable Farming is the distributor.
All right. So maybe you would want to pass along Eric's contact information. We don't want to go around you, Jerry, but if
Oh,
it's
well,
not necessary,
it's a
burden
team.
you with inquiries.
It's very much a team effort.
Okay, I'm sure it is. I've gathered that in talking with you in the past, and it's very much a family operation. Um, other comments or questions from anybody? I could hear Mary typing away. I don't know if anyone else is.
Sorry about that. I do this every time. I was.
Every time you do that, Mary, I just weep on the inside that I can't type anywhere near that fast.
I was actually just going to throw out the suggestion. It's an excellent presentation, by the way, Jerry, and I totally agree that foliar feeding is going to be faster, and it's going to get the minerals to where you want it more quickly with less waste. There's still a little bit of audio issue, and it's a very large file, and so for the Q&A session, it might actually help to just close the presentation if you're done with slides.
Okay.
And we'll knock on wood and hope that helps.
Okay, I got it, Mary. Have we seen anything of Jeremy Schulz with his presentation yet?
Well, I'm on the line.
Well, good, Jeremy. Have you sent the file yet?
Yes.
All right. Let's see.
I was having some trouble getting on the line, all I was saying. But
Yeah,
hopefully the PowerPoint came over.
I'm texting to Suzanne right now to see if she's getting it up or where we are on that, and then we'll be prepared to move on. We sure appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to spend with us and having been with us for a considerable amount of this webinar series. According to Suzanne, Jeremy, we are still looking for your file.
Okay. I'll try to resend it right now.
Well, are you on a PC where you could screen share it, or on your laptop, or what's your situation?
I am on my laptop. I am on the laptop. I could try to.
Okay, Mary, can you lead him through how to get himself to screen share? Hello, Mary. It appears she may have. There she is.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I gave you a perfect explanation on mute. If you go to the if you'll go to the More button on top of your screen.
Yes.
Is he?
Do you see where it says Share Slides?
Mary, you got him as a presenter now?
I do.
Okay.
Do you see the button that says Share Slides? You should see an upload button there.
Well, let's see. Share Slides. Okay.
Okay, there's an upload button.
Yep, I clicked on that.
Okay, and it should just open an Explorer window and let you pick your file and load it. So Jerry, while this loads up, I'm going to throw in a rest of the story of my own because I chuckled at your comment about not knowing Squanto about fish. And yesterday I could not think of the name of the author, but Daniel Richter out of Harvard has an excellent book out about America before the Revolution and devoted quite a bit of time to the story of Squanto because so many of us hear this. in the history we're taught in school. And we hear the story about teaching the Pilgrims to add fish to their plantains. And what we don't hear is that Squanto, years before he met the Pilgrims, had been captured by the Spanish, taken as a slave to Spain, traveled all over Europe for years, earning his way towards freedom, spent some time with the Norwegians, and when he arrived back to the America, his entire village had been wiped out by smallpox. So he had moved in with a neighboring village. Of course, when they saw the Pilgrims arrive, they said, "You go help them," because he was the outsider. The name Squanto was translated from something I'm probably pronouncing horribly, but something like Tisquantum, which approximately translated to the wrath of God. So when they asked him what his name was, that's what they answered. That's what he answered. And he had learned about the fish from the Norwegians. So
Wow.
now, Jim, you know the rest of the story.
I'm going to, we've read about his life very extensively as well. As a part of homeschooling our children, we've read some alternative American history books, as you may well imagine. And there is a chapter which was omitted, and that is that during his second captivity, when he was taken again a second time back to Europe, he was actually purchased at auction by a Roman Catholic priest. And the priest took him back to the abbey, and he preached Christ, and he introduced him to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And Squanto repented, and he received forgiveness. And when he finally returned, he was a new man. In fact, the tribe that he went to had been arch enemies of the tribe that had perished, from which Squanto had actually, from which he had come. But because of the death of his whole tribe, his whole group, this other, his name was, oh, help me, no, that's not it. I used to know the name of the chief of the former enemy tribe. But it was, when you think about being twice captured by the same people who are now squatting on your native grounds, I can imagine anyway, I think you can too, that you would be filled with a great deal of indignation and rage that the very people who had been responsible for transmitting the disease through their human microbiome to his native peoples that they were destroyed by could have engendered anything but a desire to help. In fact, he watched most of the winter as they carried out the young, the old, the middle-aged, as they began to die in their first winter. And instead of finding in himself a spirit of rejoicing and saying, "There, you had it coming," instead his heart became broken. And that's when he stepped out and he began to embrace them and shared that very primitive technology that that he had learned overseas, according to our Harvard rendering. It always takes more than just a head knowledge, let's put it that way, to really make a difference. And God had made the difference in Squanto's life, and it meant the preservation of the colony and the beginning of what we know today as the United States. The name of the book, you've got it? New. Okay, the name of that book, I will get it for you all. My wife could tell you off the top of her head what the story is. It is a fascinating story, and it's one that I really love. And in fact, the essence of it, I actually have shared with people who have come to this country to seek a better life. Many of them Hispanics and others, in the fact that in distress, God is always faithful to send help. And in the life of the Pilgrims, it was one of those who had been most abused, and his family's all deceased. But by the mercy of God and the grace working in him, he was able to befriend them and further the cause of the spread of the gospel from these shores for all these years ever since. I see, Jeremy, that you are loading. I see 99%.
I'm more interested in listening to your story than I am in presenting mine, for crying out loud.
Well, the buck has been passed, Jeremy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I couldn't be happier to be here. I'm sorry that I had a little difficulty getting used to the technology. I've really had plenty of time to figure it out. So I'm going to try to go through this. So the updates that I have, we had a challenging year weather-wise in several of the markets we were at.
Before we get too far down the road, Jeremy, tell us about who you are and what you're doing, okay? And I don't know, is Ray going to be joining you simultaneously, or does Ray have some comments afterwards? Ray, you're welcome to unmute yourself and whatever Jeremy and you have hatched up. I don't know if you've had time to hatch.
Well, Ray, you there?
I'm off the mute now. So I am here.
Okay.
How are you, Jim?
All right. Hi, Ray. Good to have you with us. So
Hello,
you guys can duke it out here. And Ray, I guess I would suggest, anyways, if you got anything you want to pitch in, I'm sure Jeremy will make plenty of room for you to pitch into.
I'm strictly here from a voice standpoint, so.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I hope I don't disappoint you, Ray.
Well, go ahead, Jeremy.
Tell us about yourself, Jeremy.
And
Ray, why don't you do the same?
Well, I can tell you that my name is Jeremy Schulz. I'm a truck farmer from Western Connecticut. We have a 250-acre retail vegetable operation with Pick Your Own. My background is in animal science originally, but I came to work for a fertilizer company called Caravale about 5 years ago, where I was privileged to meet Jim. I worked for one of the subsidiaries of Caravale in the central New York area in the Finger Lakes. At that time, we were looking for better sources of magnesium, and started to corroborate on some opportunities that we had. And as things evolved in life, I guess choices were made, and I moved on after 5 years with that organization to Innovative Surface Solutions. And now we have a Innovative Ag Solutions, a DBA of Innovative Surface Solutions, to bring the magnesium work that we've done over the past 5 years to the market. And so most notably, as I'm sure Jim can see it here, the biggest developments of 2015 were just the soft launch of the products that we had worked with. We got some great technology to measure some solid results on those products in our trials, which I'll show you in this slideshow. And, so I guess I better get underway. So,
okay, Ray, tell us about yourself.
Well, Jim, I'm from southwestern Ontario, halfway between London and Chatham. For folks that are in the U.S., I grew up on a farm in southwest Middlesex County and got involved in the ag retail business through my older brother, who was one of the first dry blend bulk plant originators back in the 60s. Today, I own a thriving business called Can-Grow Crop Solutions. We're located in southwestern Ontario. We are involved across Canada and in the Great Lakes Basin as an exporter. Our company is designed in the fluid fertilizer business to make use of full nitrogen solutions that utilize mag chloride also with them. We're also in the starter business and have developed some of our own proprietary biostimulant lines. So I've just had an inquisitive mind, which I think Frank's on the line. He and I crossed paths a few years ago I've been fortunate to be involved with folks that have been able to teach me a lot of things and put those together to become a success. So I've tried to be, I guess, the sounding board for Jeremy. So I'm in the background here. So
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Ray. Jeremy, I think you're free to go.
Okay. I'd like to say that too, Ray. That's absolutely the truth. And honestly, the generosity of folks who've been involved in this, involved as sounding boards, is really unmatched. I thank you all for that. I really do. It's a real testimony to your character. What's new for 2016 is that we've really got our messaging together. We have a better magnesium source. We've got the ability to deliver 100% soluble magnesium early in the plant's life, whether it's one of Ray's in furrows, whether it's a 2x2, whether it's a foliar, a nitrogen stabilizer product. This magnesium chloride-based family of blends really gives the plant a right start to really pollinate the ATP cycle, to get microbial life stirring in the soil. That's focus, those early applications, focusing on solubility in the past growing season 2015. Despite the weather, yielded some very strong trial results. So I guess what we've got is a renewed focus to quantify these kinds of gains in a more specific way going forward. But we are certain that we have a better source of magnesium for early application and for later foliar application. Excuse me. We're going to talk about some of the messaging of the product and about the different blends that we focused on. A lot of this stuff overlaps with some of the other ideas that folks have from other companies and other other product lines. And I'm going to go through them quickly and just kind of talk about how we've managed to get into the organic market and our hard launch for 2016. Okay, what's new for our NutriMag family is that we've decided on the name NutriMag. We've had a couple of different names kicked around, but this is a name that we now own, and so the products will be called NutriMag, whether they are a 2x2 or a foliar applied or a nitrogen stabilizer product, instead of having a couple of different names that really aren't related to one another. Our application season's obviously starting much earlier, starting with 2x2 and going all the way through our foliars at early reproduction. Incorporating soil and foliar application with different, based on the farm strategies and their equipment that's available, which we've been able to demonstrate measurable responses across several crops this year, including wheat, malting barley, soybeans, grain corn, silage corn, melons, and actually sweet corn. Let's see if I left anything out. We're waiting for our alpha data to come back. Cornell has that now, and they're doing feed value testing for us. The family of products is been broken down somewhat more specifically in NutriMag N, which is a 4002 calcium, 5.5 magnesium. NutriMag Foliar, which is our standard magnesium-based foliar applied product with secondary biological metabolites. NutriMag 703, which is a fully loaded foliar product. They can also be applied as a 2x2. And our NutriMag Organic, which is OMRI certified in both the U.S. and Canada. And that product can be applied at any point during the plant's life, whether it be soil applied with it planting or foliar applied, early green up or early reproduction. This allows us to kind of work with our farmers in a more specific way and mold our programs around their current planting schedules. So it also gives us a longer calendar for sales, but it doesn't hurt. The messaging that we've decided on and which has been evident through our projects over the last 5 years, Ray has been critical importance to this process that we do have a better source of magnesium. And the plants drink, they don't eat. Our product is much more available in early colder soils. The challenge of getting magnesium to the plant with insoluble dry fertilizers like K-Mag, Sulfamag, Kieserite, dolomitic limestone early in the plant's life is a serious obstacle to solid plant health. To have a 100% soluble magnesium source available to the plant immediately in cold soils starts us off on the right foot. Ray, do you want to chime in on that at all?
Well, our work over the years, we believe in our soils here in Ontario, irregardless of test value or saturation level of magnesium on those soils, high or low or the perfect number. We feel that if we get a readily available source of magnesium as close to that root system as early as possible, that we will influence the uptake and the movement of those sugars in that early plant stage of growth and prime it for future growth and future expansion and movement of sugars down to root mass. Our basic belief that we have is that our root systems need to be a minimum of 50% dry matter, or what our whole plant dry matter basis is, through that vegetative state of growth early on. Here we'll find that we'll get an increase in P uptake if our mag levels are high. And of course that creates some challenges if you're using a neutral phosphate in furrow with how much P you can do in furrow. That's why we opt over into that nitrogen band in a 2x2 placement, and quite often will have the equivalent of 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of mag in that location.
Thanks, Ray. The NutriMag N formulation, like I said earlier, is a 400 calcium 5.5 mag. It's our readily available magnesium source. This is to be applied as row support or in the UAN application, and it's been on the crop. Obviously dictates when that's going to go down. The NutriMag N stabilizes the ammonium nitrogen in the UAN, causes a cytokine response, working with our secondary biological metabolites to create a root burst. We've seen a lot of improvement with seedling vigor, pH levels in the soil right around the rhizosphere and the early and new root growth, which has resulted in better plant, better stands, increased yield, and better quality. I don't know why this has got some strange font change to the top, so you'll have to forgive me. The NutriMag Foliar has led to increased chlorophyll production, photosynthesis, correcting the micronutrient deficiencies and building bricks across several crops. This year's tests included potatoes, malting barley, and wheat, and we looked at these levels in and had some very surprising results. Our potato trials came back. Very encouraging news, especially on we reached levels of in advance of 4,500 weight per acre. So that was pretty good. On our malting barley and wheat, we've observed natural fungicidal suppression, as well as better green up, better moistures, more uniform dry down, and higher bushel weights, as well as yield. The NutriMag Foliar is available as a 703, which some of you guys have had experience with Jim. Calls it Mega Mag. We couldn't get that name, so we used NutriMag. It was the one that we could secure for future marketing and promotion. NutriMag Organic is registered in Canada and the U.S. It was previously a NO-FA New York certified product and a Bay State Organic certifier's product. We were able to complete the process this past year. That is our. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. And that is our base magnesium chloride and our secondary biological metabolites. We use that to increase chlorophyll, photosynthesis, correct our micronutrient deficiencies, add to the bricks, building those sugars early on in the plant's life. As Ray said so well earlier, when it goes on as a foliar, we have those fungicidal properties. So you can suppress rust and scab in wheat. You can help hold off disease for longer periods of time. Actually, there's a resident scientist at Cornell now who's looking at white mold and what causes white mold to first emerge out of the soil and what form it's in. And those small spores that come out, we've been able to terminate those spores early on. And part of our research in 2016 is going to be to find out if we can actually suppress those spores permanently. Again, we see some of the results from our other blends that they transfer over to the organic just fine, which is more uniform dry down, lower moistures, higher bushel weights. So that coupled with improved nutrient efficiency and mobility, better yields, and its use on pretty much any crop makes the winner in our trials in 2015. Here's an example of that potato plot. Now this was Nutrimag foliar. It was put down at 1 gallon at a time, 5 gallons total, to coincide with a fungicidal application. You can see here that the 100 weight per acre off on the right-hand side, and the last cells on the upper right-hand corner, it was 240 100 weight per acre versus 191 as the control. Now, this wasn't these yields aren't very impressive at all. However, given the circumstances and the conditions in which they were grown, this was a big help to our farmer. They have a research component to their farm up in New Gloucester, Maine. They were very happy to see this kind of response. So when you look at the marketable fruit sizes, you can also see here that the A's came in at 58% versus 56%. In this market, which is a contract potato market, they're looking for as many A's as they can get. The B's really aren't something that they can find a market for. If they have fresh market opportunities, they can work them in. Otherwise, they're culls. The average plots below on the table 2, the second half of this grid, those data points were taken after you remove the damaged parts. And what I mean by damage is there were parts of the field where there was standing water during the year that were worse than others. So we excluded those. And when you did that, the idea to get rid of any data that's artificially affecting the results, you get a little bit less of a you get more of an unbiased assessment of the data. Take a look at that. You get the same number of days as far as the spread and percentages of the benefit of the yield, and then you get 253 100 weight versus 203. Does anybody have any questions about that trial?
We did have a question just popped up on the use of Nutrimag being used in furrow. Jeremy?
Okay. I actually have not used Nutrimag in the trench. We've stuck to a 2x2, so I really can't speak to that. Ray, do you want to speak about putting fluoride-based products in the furrow?
We as a company, without being an advertisement, do use material in furrow as a replacement for. We make an in-furrow to be used on high manured, high livestock operations. It's a replacement for phosphate in-furrow to get the plant up and going. Mag will work well in furrow. Your challenge is if you have a neutral phosphate material, is the amount that you can mix with that particular neutral phosphate that you're using. The two won't stay in solution, so you're limited in the quantities that you can get by. We've gone as high as a gallon of mag chloride in furrow without any challenges, but you probably can't get much more than a pint, if that much, into some of the neutrals that are out there. So it becomes a testing.
Mm-hmm. Jerry Carlson, are you online with us?
Uh-oh.
Jerry may have stepped away from the phone. I believe one of the trials that he did with Megamag this year, without going to his paperwork, actually included the use of the Megamag in furrow.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember what the outcome of that was, Jeremy? I was thinking it was favorable, quite favorable.
I don't. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't have that right in front of me. I'd like to try to look at that again as well, that slide. That's very interesting to me.
Well, I didn't think he was going to put it there. So when the data came across this fall, I was like, oh, he put it in furrow. Oh, well, I hope everything turned out all right. And it was. I was very relieved to see that there was a nice response to it. And it very much affirms what you said, Ray, where we have good P1s from highly manured soils, and we don't really require much P in the furrow. This is a great way to get early soluble magnesium and microminerals into that young plant. That's been very effective.
We'll traditionally, Jim, we'll set it up as a 4 to 5 gallon to the acre type application, and the level of magnesium will be generally at 2% or a little stronger on the guarantee on the mag side. Mm-hmm. And we always maintain about a 2-to-1 ratio with ammonium N on that, because that gives you that root burst, that cytokine type effect in that early planting plant. So without getting the products too much, but no, it's really worthwhile doing. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Safety at the type of level they would use for agronomic use, there's not a safety concern there, as long as distribution is adequate in furrow on corn and wheat.
Okay. Hey, Jeremy.
Okay. Is Jerry on, or is he?
No, he's still muted, so he may be away.
Okay. All right. This is just a kind of a data dump of corn that's, for whatever reason, the summary is not showing up. But you can take a look at this and digest this at your leisure. But this is these are replicated plots that came in this year. You can see that the bushels were not as high as anybody had hoped that they would be. You have to forgive me. The slide should have had, for whatever reason, it's not colored properly. But we want to skip that. Keep it easy. This one you can see clearly. This is a side-by-side weed trial on a 75-acre parcel that was over in Albion, New York. This had a Nutramatic foliar application. It went on with UAN, and you could see that these samples taken just a week after application, the green up is quite striking. You have more vigorous root growth. Those roots stand straight out at you down there on these samples on the left-hand side, and it was the yield difference was so drastic. And when we drove out to this fellow's place, that he just came cruising over in his pickup truck. I hadn't been there before, but he decided to do this on his own. So we weren't there for application timing, but he came over, and I was getting ready for him to pop me over the head for something that might have gone wrong, or at the rate of speed at which he was driving. But the news was good. Once again, this fellow was John Cast, and places this wheat did as much as 116, almost 117 bushel versus the untreated at 86. But more importantly, which you'll see later in the presentation, then the yield was dry down. There is over 4% better dry down on the magnesium-treated wheat. For these folks to be able to load that wheat directly into their storage without having to go through their dryer was a huge benefit. And he had said that in all the years of growing wheat that they'd never seen such a uniform stand of wheat at harvest time. Now, they have a particularly challenging drying process where they have to go from the combine to the truck to the dryer, back to the truck, and then to the bin. So to go straight from the combine to the truck to the bin saved them a huge amount of time. They're, a 400-acre wheat grower. So, and I put this in for you, Jim. We got Craig Cook out on his soybean field this year. We were able to get some magnesium out on his beans. We went out foliar. The conditions were pretty challenging in Auburn with standing water, but we still were able to see a marketed benefit of 8 bushel per acre using a Pioneer way wagon with randomized replicated trials. We went out a little later given that there was standing water on the field, so we did have early reproduction going on once we got on the beans. Excuse me. These are some of the observations we made, which we do have some video footage, but you can see the difference in the new growth after just a couple, actually it was about 10 days afterward. You have increased nodulation, quite a difference in your fibrous root hair growth on the specimen on the right, which is obviously the treated. And that's what they look like. And this is a random sampling conducted by the farmer. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
We hear you just fine, Jeremy. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. That's Craig taking a sample for moisture out of the way wagon we use. Same one we've used for the past 5 years, and he's been a great cooperator with us with both Megamag trials and NutriMag trials. Kind of give you an idea of the kind of work we're doing. We triple weigh everything, and we record all our data from the combine monitor and from the weigh wagon. Just give you an idea. These are, this looks good. All right, so the color came through on here. This is Craig Cook's soybean plot. The red is the treated, the black is not, and it gives you a kind of an idea of the difference in moistures. You can see on the first repetition you got 13.4 versus 13.6. Slight variations in improvement in moisture, but you can also have pounds. Each of these plots was 0.17 acres. So the pounds, when you gross them up, we ended up averaging, again, an 8 bushel increase across the field. These are testimonials from the folks that worked with us this year and have for several years. The best looking beans on the farm, Craig Cook, were treated with NutriMag. Again, we had some serious standing water issues, and he's got some tough ground. We worked with a wheat and barley grower down in Black Dirt region of New York State, down around Middletown. They set a record yield harvest on wheat and malting barley. They really had quite a struggle because they don't have the kind of equipment to handle those kinds of yields. But again, that Black Dirt is highly organic and extremely highly productive. So we obviously are very pleased with our results. And John Cass, the farmer from the photo earlier, NutriMag yielding up to 30 bushel per acre more than the control. So definitely fans of magnesium. I wanted to, I guess I got a duplicate here. John Cass also said, like I said before, that they saved as much, the most important savings they experienced in their treatment was that they saved on lower moistures and uniform harvesting. And this is our plot, a photo from our plot in Sugar Creek in Nunday. This was a Megamag plot that was treated down in John Van Heusen's farm. The corn plot was NutriMag. The soybean plot was Megamag. Ray, you were out there and saw that plot. Ray was generous enough to drive down and take a look at that. We weren't there for the harvesting of that because the farmer went and wanted to get it done. He was pressed for time, but his testimonial referred to an 8 to 9 bushel observation based on his yield monitor for the Megamag treated soybeans. And he did a 40-acre field in strips. All righty. That's about it for me. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Ray, if you have anything to say, please chime in.
Well, just one thing. Jeremy. Your applications on the wheat and your applications on corn and soybeans, even those potatoes, are, especially the wheat, is pre early stage reproductive. You had the head in the boot, so your response is a mobilization, and there's all kinds of really good products that can go along with it to enhance. But you need magnesium at a high level in this plant to mobilize the sugars ahead of that head emergence in wheat to keep the root ball alive so that it doesn't go through natural senescence and the uploading of sugars to the head. So what you're doing at that point is moving things down so that you got a much stronger, healthier plant going into that stress period of reproductive. Same thing on the corn. Your timeline is a 2, 3, 4-leaf wrap, 5-leaf wrap on tassel. You're moving sugars to that root ball, which Jerry Carlson was alluding to, how his product could enhance that or make that stronger earlier. And every time those sugars move down, they leak out around the root system and they help the biological life that is present. And that's more from personal experience over years than it is from a clinical standpoint. But mag is critical to this whole system, and personally, I think of mag as the fuel that runs the pump that's in charge of getting the sugars out of the cell. And the higher that level is, the more efficient the machine is we have, and that we really probably can't go over the top end on it. The pump just will be pumped to its capacity of what the fuel is. But you've got some good basic work in place, and especially in that Western New York, Central New York market, where they struggle with stress at that time ahead of reproduction and all of those crops. So that's all I had.
Yeah, Ray, this is Jerry. I heard my name a minute ago. I'd stepped away and muted the mic, but I'm back. And I think that may have been a question about some of the results I sent you, Ray, and some others, which were not on my presentation. But we did do a Megamag call on corn. And the response was 6 bushels in furrow. There was 2 pints of Megamag per acre in furrow. And then you put a wake up with it, and it doubled that to 12.3. So I apparently that's what we're seeing, Ray, is we're getting that mobilization of sugars, and right down there in furrow is a place to put it.
Well, and that's all going to help the whole biological life profile in that rhizosphere as a direct result of that. Soybean, all the way from soybean nodulation on up through. Especially with your product in there, Jerry, it appears to definitely have a gain.
Yeah, apparently things move through the phloem system much more rapidly. Ironically, we've got to be kind of careful about overdoing it, because when you reduce surface tension, you can also slow down slightly the capillary action up to the xylem. So we don't want to hurt that very much. You've got to be very moderate and hit the sweet spot.
Got to be conscious of that other side, no question.
This was 3% material at 1 quart, right, Jerry? You put out 1 quart in furrow?
It was 2 pints per acre in furrow. Yep. And whatever, I'm not sure what percentage was you sent me, but whatever
3%.
Provided, yeah. That was planted May 22nd, harvested October 12th, yeah. We only had 60 units of nitrogen on there, 2 by 2, and we got, it's not spectacular, but it was 161 bushel.
Pretty efficient. Well, I want to give some recognition here to someone who's been on our program but has never appeared, and that's John Kemp. About the same time that Jeremy was working with me in the early stages of this, I sat in on one of John's presentations here in Indiana, and I began to take a new appreciation of the plant as a sugar factory. And I think speaking for myself, I'll just speak for myself, I had sort of taken for granted that it's going to be making all the sugars that it can, no matter what. And then it sort of struck me, because of the tip back problem that I've historically seen in corn. And it didn't seem like there was anything we could do about it. And it led me down a very interesting series of thoughts about the fruiting, period, just the process in which the plant undertakes to establish an embryo. And I realized that because the creator is highly involved in everything reproducing itself, kind after kind, there must be parallels. There must be some analogous things that are happening between all of the members of creation that God has called to the same thing, to fill the earth, to replace themselves. And so it was, I started looking at this, and because our family has struggled over bearing children, because my wife has had some issues with past history in nutrition, and not that she had a bad diet, she just didn't have a very abundant diet. Let's just put it that way. And so I began to think about the pregnancies and how they had developed, and I began to look at this plant really very differently. And I saw in that the key role that the plant plays in supplying the soil microbiome, rhizosphere, whatever you want to call it, the soil life, with its energy. It really doesn't possess very much chlorophyll. Its ability to extract energy from the sun directly is almost non-existent. So how does it get its energy except from the plant? So I started to really focus on that, and Jeremy was wanting me to help design plots in New York and using the mag chloride material. And so I said, okay, and the more I worked with it here in Indiana, the more I saw this tip back was disappearing. At the timing that you're talking about too, Ray, it needs to be pre-embryonic. That is when the embryo really comes to life and starts to grow. And amazing stuff began to happen. It was very visual. It was very obvious. It was all a function, really, which was verified by the SAP testing of increasing sugars. Brick meters, are good, and they are a great global view of not just sugars, but also mineral content in plant sap. But when I used the SAP testing, of course, and was able to sort out the mineral concentrations and track those differently in old leaves, new leaves, and sucrose and glucose sugars separately from the minerals, it was really obvious that by applying magnesium, we definitely changed the whole sugar production profile of this plant. And what has proceeded from it, of course, has resulted in all this work that Jeremy's been doing, and of course work that I wasn't aware of what Ray had been doing. We'd known each other by reputation, but for a long, long time, but we never sat down and talked until over 6 months ago, right, Ray? It was sometime during the course of the spring or summer. I can't remember now. But
it was the day of one of your grandson's birthdays, because you had to go home to get back to Indiana. So
it would have been mid-June then, June the 9th.
Yep, somewhere around there.
Yep, that's right, June the 9th. So this has been quite an interesting trip. There's I'm sure there must be some more questions out there. People, don't be bashful. Either turn your mics on or type them in.
Sure.
One of the things that we learned while you guys are doing that, one of the things that we learned in the work that we did here in Indiana was the capacity of the plant to rid itself of heavy metals in response to elevating sugar concentrations. I don't know that we'll ever know fully all of the mechanisms, but it was very, very obvious. Dave Chance was very instrumental in this and cooperating with his application of the original MegaMag formula by that name. And we watched in a matter of, I think it was about 3 weeks, we watched what happened to the aluminum in both tissue and sap. And it was quite startling. The plant was not toxic as far as aluminum, but it was pretty high on the chart. When you're talking 300 and I think it was 350 some parts per million, perhaps, of aluminum. And it dropped down to around 90, as I recall. And if Dave, if you're with us, you may be able to help me put some real numbers to those, what are just now rough recollections. But that to me was very significant, because we know that these mineral imbalances are going to interfere with normal metabolisms. They're going to have an effect. And so I would add that to that list of stuff you've got there early in the presentation about what the magnesium, at least magnesium in concert with other nutrients, can achieve in terms of detoxification. Any comments anybody wants to make on that? Frank Dean, I know you're in the wings. Any comments that you would like to make about magnesium nutrition, your experiences or observations?
I just know Ray's been around for a long time, and how you doing, Ray?
Good, Frank. How are you? Did you get
Doing
that coffee
good.
drink yet?
Did I what?
Did you drink the coffee you went and got?
Almost halfway. Yeah. But I've known Ray a long time. He's up in Canada. I've met Jeremy a couple of times, I think, and spoken with him. I guess, Ray is successful for a reason. So this is one of his mainstays, and he's been around for a lot of years doing the same thing. So he must be doing something right.
Thanks, Frank.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You have to think of it like this. The plant that makes the sugars and sends them down to the roots, and some of them are exudates, and the microbials consume them. And in the presence of water, their CO2 waste from the sugar would make a carbonic acid. And so that's maybe how, if the plant is starving for something and it starts producing lots of sugars and sending them down, maybe that's how you got the aluminum. And then once you have the aluminum, the only thing you can do then is sort of vegetatively grow out of it. Right? Does that make sense?
Literally diluted, right, Frank?
Yeah.
It's like trying to make a tissue test work. Like your aluminum test, you grow the dry matter content of the plant and it grows. That's what I was thinking too. That's dilution.
Right.
Under control. It's management.
Right.
But it'd be the only way you could attack it.
Right.
I agree with that.
That's an interesting prospect, because the material was applied, the tassels were almost emerged. They may have even been partially emerged. There was silks were just about 5%. And we were back in 3 weeks later. I don't think the dry matter of the plant would have increased to about 300%.
Okay.
So I got the gut that there's something else I believe this aluminum is actually being mobilized and being transported down into the root system.
It may be. It may. Maybe the sugar shuttles the aluminum out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think the plant's program is to maintain homeostasis in its minerals, and in the presence of enough energy, its capabilities in that regard are improved. In the case of stresses and inabilities to mobilize, it's going to be stuck there.
Yeah.
But I know what you guys are saying, and it's absolutely true. You check aluminum on a plant at V4, and it can be off the charts. Then you come back at V10 or VT, and it's like, well, this is no big deal. Well, then there is a huge difference in the amount of dry matter that we're looking at, and dilution is a definite factor. In our case, 21, 22 days between samples, and a plant that is not increased that much in dry matter. It hasn't put on ear. It hasn't filled starch. It hasn't done a lot of stuff in those 21 days except to create embryos. And we saw this, I think it was 345% difference between the pre-app and the post-app.
the other thing that's going on there, your sink relationship for those embryos. Number one, you've got several cob points on every node that are going to attract a tremendous amount of sugars in your control. But where your mag is applied, you're forcing an overabundance or movement of sugars out of that plant, so that the last sink fed, namely the root system, is got that surplus, and maybe that is mobilizing a bit of that aluminum. Yeah, there's a tremendous stress on these corn plants, especially at 2 to 3. I'm of the old school, but 2 or 3 leaf wrap around that tassel. That's probably where that sugar sinks are now in the embryonic stage, going there rather than being directed just to above ground and below ground parts. And people don't identify that that's there. They think everything looks well because it's above ground, but that root system starts shrinking early, long before tassel, and you've got to keep it maintained. That's for sure.
Okay. I don't see any questions popping up for us. At this point, Jeremy, any parting glances that you want to make? Ray, any final comments you'd like to make?
No, I'm good. There's good data. Jeremy's got an excellent product in the marketplace, and we're trying to provide a little guidance in the background for them so they can get it out and get it rolling. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be online, Jim, and hopefully we can keep in touch as we go forward.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in a little over a week.
Okay.
I'll get the timing down a little better. Hopefully I can find you around the place on Saturday morning at the end of January.
Okay, well, we'll let's get an email back and forth. I've got one trip that may complicate that, but we'll try and make sure you're up here in Ontario, so our paths will cross. So,
all right, very good, very good. Thank you very much for joining us, Ray. Jeremy, thank you very much for a very able presentation. From the way you had talked, it didn't sound like you were going to have much to say after the kind of growing season it had been. But Jerry Carlson, thank you for backup on the presentation. Frank, for your comments. And
I'm just delighted everything came together as well as it did. And and maybe I need to speak with Mary at some point, just to learn some more off of her. But I thought it went well. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to set it. We're going to step out for just about 5 minutes, everybody. We're going to stop the recording now, and we'll take a little 5-minute break while we get Frank's presentation up in the queue, talking to us about urea phosphite technology.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Welcome back to the afternoon session of the final day. Frank Dean is in the queue. Going to talk to us about to me, a very important building block in the transition to a more biological approach to growing a crop. Obviously, I guess it would be safe to say, Frank, this doesn't fit into an organic program, but nonetheless, for the non-organic grower who has a backlog of disease organisms, soil imbalances, anaerobic soil conditions, any number of other production barriers and health barriers, I have found this product on the farms I've worked with over the years to be of increasing value. And I thank the Lord for the day that you watched this product develop on your windowsill. Would you mind telling us, Frank, how it all happened?
I started trying to make a water-soluble phosphite, like a 20-20-20 with phosphite in there. And every time I tried to make it, it would turn liquid. And I thought, well, there's too much water in there. So then I would put the urea in the phosphorus acid, and every time I did it, it turned into a clear liquid. And so I thought it was getting too much moisture from the atmosphere. So I tried to heat it up, and I took it outside and I put it on my grill, and I turned the heat on to try to drive the water off so that I could get a crystal. And when I did that, it exploded and destroyed my grill. I guess urea at 160 degrees decomposes. So it is a liquid. How do I advance pages, Jim?
Down at the bottom, you should have a next block.
No, I don't.
You don't?
No.
Well, in that case, I guess
Say next and I'll move it.
Okay, there you go. So anyway, that's Prudent 44 is essentially urea and phosphorus acid, and we do add a little bit of ammonia. Oh, okay. So we do make a liquid out of it. It is relatively high. It is about the highest concentration at a decent pH. There's very little water in it. It contains a higher percentage of PO3 than other phosphites. It's 5.8 pounds of phosphorus acid per gallon and a total of 10.8 pounds of phosphite per gallon. It can be used at lower rates than any other product. And because we don't have water in the jug, it's very, very stable on the shelf. It does not degrade to phosphate over time. So that's a real key. We do add a little bit of surfactant so we can get everything taken up quickly. Because the pH is right around 5, it does tend to clean up some hard water issues in spray tanks. It's compatible with most fertilizers and pesticides. It can be used as a buffer for your insecticide so you don't get alkaline hydrolysis. And it can be used along with Neutral, which is a 05032 fungicide. And when they're used together, we can then claim things like Phytophthora, Pythium, Rhizoc, Fusarium, and things like that. So you'll get better rooting, better crop quality, the ability to tolerate unfavorable stresses, and the ability to absorb water and nutrients. So it's really a neat product. This is one we sell up north because it does have a freezing problem. If we don't have enough urea in there, it tends to freeze, at low temperatures. Now, this is an example of what we can do with our Prudent RX. Prudent 44 or urea phosphite is a base ingredient. This would be a product that we formulate with it. Now, when what we do here is you'll notice it does have a whole list of micronutrients and things like that, but you look at the molybdenum and nickel, they're relatively high. And the reason they're high is because we were working in Florida with orange trees, and this is what was showing up in some of the citrus greening. So we added this along with some other things, and we do add our crystal clear micronutrients in there, the Prudent 44, and we do use a blend of individual amino acids. We don't use any peptides or polypeptides, or these are all individual acids put together in a ratio actually to overcome or eliminate problems you would get with amino acid inhibitor herbicides. So it delivers everything in there. The urea phosphite transports everything into the plant really quick. And the proline and glutamic acid and histidine, they all help with things like drought stress or water stress or even physical stress. So we are there to correct the deficiencies, environmental stresses, which includes the use of herbicides, foliar herbicides. Nickel deficiency can cause a large number of problems and several processes in the plant, such as the shikimic acid pathway. So everybody knows where this is going, right? And nickel is directly or indirectly affects the activity of at least one critical enzyme in the urea cycle. So if you have enough nickel in your plant, and it's free to engage with the enzymes, it makes for a very, very easy, we can apply very, very heavy doses of urea without getting any burn. We've done, 40, 50 pounds of urea in a foliar per acre, just knowing these things. So here's some little interesting field results. This is where it all started. This was in my backyard. These are Roundup Ready beans and corn. And you can see I sprayed the Roundup. But then I wanted to spray the Roundup and add something to it to stop the Roundup from working. And so this is when I started to play around. And so this was back in 2010. So we did get a success here. We did stop the Roundup from working. So that was pretty cool. Now, on orange trees, you have to understand the culture down there. These people, they would go in with a gallon of glyphosate, and to that they would add a 2,4-D or another glyphosate mix. So they would go down with 2 gallons of glyphosate and 2,4-D per acre, but they only spray under the drip line of the tree. So everything else is mowed. And they wondered why they were getting problems with the trees dying, and they called it citrus greening. So what we did is we went down and looked at the trees. We went and figured out what the glyphosate was blocking metabolically in the plant, and we replaced that. Then I took the stability constants of glyphosate, and I did a little calculation against Marshner's average nutrition for a successful seed. And so I did the stability constant of glyphosate times the average nutrition, and I made a chart. And that chart is what shows up on the label. That's what we sprayed on the trees. And a couple of weeks later, all the problems went away. He's going to harvest here in February. I'll be down there next week, and all the trees are full of fruit, and they should be turning orange now, so I should be able to get some really good pictures. This is another trial we did in Florida. This is an untreated tree in Immokalee, and here's the treated tree. This would be about 1 year into it. You can see, well, you can't see it, but what happens is the bottom of the tree starts to grow first. And as the tree recovers, it fills in. So it takes about a whole year for it to fill in. This untreated tree, of course, will have no yield, and we will. But this just shows here in-furrow treatments with a little bit of that RX. You can see on corn, you can see we just picked up 10 bushel with probably a ½ ounce per acre or something. This here would be the seed treatments. Very, very minute amount. You can see seed treatment plus RX, and we went from 198 to 221. Again, this here would be RX on treated soy seed, and you can see, just tiny amounts picks it up. And the idea was this, is that whenever we spray the glyphosate, we tie up the micronutrients in the plant. That's a given. We block enzymes in the plant. That's a given. And so what I was trying to do in Florida was put the right nutrients in, plus add what was being blocked. And when I did that, and we put the NutriSmart on the soil, all incidents of disease went away. So this just says rates and timing, but that's all. I was going to be quick. I guess. So does anybody want to know anything or hear anything? Or are you there, Jim?
Yes,
Frank, I need to get in touch with you because next week we're going to be going down to Florida and looking at this HLB problem and trying to do something about it.
So, who is this?
This is Jerry Carlson.
Jerry, you were not here for the other day for my I'll be in Florida Sunday through Wednesday. I'll be giving a presentation in the town of Stewart Monday night. Monday afternoon, I have to go to a field that was actually, the farm was shut down, and we changed his behavior, and that was about a year ago. So his trees are actually coming back, and the farm is now reopened.
Okay.
If we look at these trees right there, when we look at these trees had really no leaves at all when we started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They had no leaves at all. And as a matter of fact, this was a 40-acre field, and we did 20 acres, 4 blocks of 5 acres when we were trying to figure this out. Start with one thing and add to see where we would get the best effect. So we had a 20-acre control. Once we started to get a nice response, IFAS, which is the University of Florida, came in and pushed our 20-acre control. So you can guess that they're not welcome back there anymore. But then I did give a presentation to the University of Florida in Gainesville at the Horticultural Sciences Center. And I presented everything, and I left them documents and my presentation. And that was a Thursday afternoon. The next Saturday morning, on all our testing locations that I disclosed to the university, the extension agents and the professors went out to the farm and told the farmers, don't listen to Frank, he's batshit crazy. Yeah.
Sounds like the University at work.
That was the University of Florida. But when have you ever known a professor to be around on a Saturday morning? It's not going to happen. So they were told to do it, and they went right to where the people I was working with. I was just making full disclosure. But so the citrus greening problem, I believe we have licked. We have a total of 4 trials now. everywhere we work, it's successful. We have actually begun to sell some product in Florida for the problem. The problem is not the bacteria, and the problem is not the psyllid. If you have sustainability in mind, then you understand that the psyllid would only show up because it's an insect to collect garbage. And so if the tree is that far out of whack that it's being attacked by insects, then it's garbage. There's something out of whack, right? And then when bacteria come in, you have to understand that when the bacteria come in, they're just opportunistic. Who cares? They might even belong there. No one has ever completed Koch's postulates. No one's ever been able to take the disease and put it into another tree and have another tree get sick. However, I can make the tree get every single greening symptom with the application of herbicide. So the idea that the psyllid and the bacteria are the cause is really a smokescreen, and it's just an opportunity to stall things long enough until they get a GMO tree. When I gave my presentation,
watch your back when you're in Florida.
Oh, I'm welcome there. Look, this guy here, he's gonna. You know what I did? We changed their behavior. We put a polymer in with this herbicide, and he can kill weeds 5-6 feet tall with 75% of his herbicide with the polymer. On the ground here with the polymer, he would go 5 months straight without even breakthrough from grass. We have cut his herbicide applications from 6 to 2 per year. And the 2 applications of herbicide we cut by 25%, which is instead of 2 gallons, he's down to a quarter to. So you can see, and of course, you know, we had to there's a pre-emergent, I think it's diuron, in the polymer. That's what's keeping the grass and weeds out. But citrus greening is nothing more than the citrus crop being an indicator crop for the toxicity in the system. When we talk to people, you know, why do wild trees get it? Why do organic people get it? Well, it's because of the glyphosate in the manure. In the wild, the county. I had some maps here the other day. Per square mile, wherever they grow citrus, they have greater than 3,500,000 gallons of glyphosate per square mile in 13 years. That in 13 years, they had put out greater than 5,000 gallons per acre of glyphosate in 13 years. When you take the map of where the citrus greening occurs, and then you take the map of where the glyphosate occurs, which incidentally is put together by the U.S. Geological Society, and the other one was put together by the University of Florida. When you lay them on top of each other, it's a dead match. Wherever they use the most glyphosate per square mile is where the disease shows up.
And when you talk to those growers or the consultants that consult with them now and tell them, first thing you got to do is quit putting the poison on. And they say, well, that's going to be a hard thing. They've been doing that for years, and they say it's no problem.
Right. So the only guys who actually I can work with are the guys who are going bankrupt or broke. That nobody, that's just how it works, right? They're desperate. They'll try anything. So it's really pretty neat. Where are you going to be in Florida?
Well, my son's going to be in Florida. He'll be at the Citrus Show on the 27th.
Okay.
And around Fort Pierce, Melbourne, in that area.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll talk to you independently, and we'll see if we can get something connected.
Okay.
Well, Stuart's not far away.
Stewart's right next to Fort Pierce, and Vero is right next to 20 miles. So
yeah.
And then Haines City, of course, is the jewel, and we're also doing something over in Tampa. So I plan on coming into West Palm, doing Vero Monday morning, Stewart Monday afternoon. Tuesday I have a meeting in West Palm. Monday night I have a public meeting, some in the town of Stewart. Tuesday all day meetings with my boss, and Wednesday morning I'll be going to Haines City. So it's there. So that's my take on it. The citrus greening is self-induced. It's the culture. It's the culture.
You heard the presentation of Bob Streit concerning gosses and sudden death in beans. Frank, would you be willing to comment on the situation there in the Dakotas, South Dakota, Iowa, parts of Nebraska, Indiana, Illinois, where these same outbreaks?
Yeah, we had some, just so you know, a farmer in southern Illinois had Purdue come out and look at his corn. It wasn't drying out, and it was losing weight every day. So they took a bunch of ears and put them in the freezer. I don't know. Did I tell you these things, Jim?
No,
Okay.
This is a new story.
Okay, here's the deal. This is kind of funny. This will be the first time I disclose this, but this was 3 or 4 years ago. So I took I got samples of the corn that was put into the freezer, and I pulled some of the kernels out, and I crushed them up, and I tried to plate it out, but Gauss's wilt won't plate out. So then I put it under a microscope, and I couldn't see anything. The corn starch everything was clean. So I called Heim, and I said, Heim, this is Dr. Gunner. I called Dr. Gunner, and I said, Heim, they're telling me this has Gauss's wilt, but the corn seems sterile. The starch, everything seems sterile. He says, well, that's good. You want sterile cornstarch. So I got to reading a little bit more. I put the stuff back in the freezer. I came back and defrosted one of the cobs later and pulled it out. When I pulled it out, after it defrosted, the reason the corn was losing weight was because the radicle had begun growing inside the cob in the field. So at that point, I called the people up who sent me, I called people up and said, this is somebody else's problem. This is not your problem. You will never get the problem. Don't concern yourself with this. So that's what I told the people in Ohio and Indiana that I know. Not to worry about Gauss's wilt, because what we put in our products will prevent that. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. So nobody in your area that works with us or Jim or Ron, they never have Gauss's wilt. Most of them, huh?
That's true.
Yeah, they won't ever get it as long as they work with us. Another thing is the soybean sudden death, right? That again is, you got to. I've been following Dr. Huber for a long time, and we are pretty successful. We don't see really any incidents of sudden death. And I don't know how long, Jim.
Yeah.
5, 8 years. Anybody who does what we don't get sudden death. We don't get the even the fusarium on wheat. We don't really get those problems like other people do anymore, do they?
No, really, it's quite surprising, and
Yeah,
I think part of it is that we're nurturing the microbiome.
exactly right.
We're imparting immunity to the plant through the influences which the plant and the soil are mutualistically creating in this synergy.
Right.
Which is why I really wanted to have you wrap this up a little bit today. I had a method to madness, because eventually I see these transitional technologies of like the Prudent 44, like some of the products like Jerry Carlson has been testing, as very important tools
Right.
to begin to apply relief to the system, while the soil system itself, this 2 million pound per 7-inch layer, is able to get itself regenerated.
Right.
John Kemp recently made a remark on Facebook or LinkedIn or someplace, and he said, do we really want to talk about sustainability? Or do we want to really be talking about a regenerative system?
Right. And when we say regenerative, you have to build insurance policies into that. You had a guy named Wayne who put glyphosate on a Liberty crop or Liberty on a glyphosate crop. You remember 3 or 4 years ago? And so we gave him the fix for that. It was the stuff that I did in my backyard, right? That stopped the grass from dying. You just spray this out there, and the beans will live. And that's happened many times since. So we do understand how glyphosate works. And when you understand how it works, you can then have the understanding of how to make it not work.
And we're getting to a level of understanding about how it works.
Yes.
To the point where an Anthony Samsel says that any amount of this material moving in a metabolic system, whether it's plant, soil, or human, or ruminant animal, is having an effect.
I sent you an email, not an email. I typed your name on a Facebook page post today.
Okay.
You are what you eat. And somebody somewhere has found the food you consume changes the DNA of your sperm.
Yeah.
And so that's published now. So what do future generations look like? That's published. So you can see that tonight.
Yeah, well, and we know that the medical profession recognizes the validity of this thesis when they ask you for your family's medical history.
Right.
They want to know whether there is a history of coronary disease, whether there's a history of cancer or diabetes, or any number of other things. I mean, the list and the number of pages is exhaustive. I couldn't even get a tooth pulled without spending 20 minutes completing my family's medical history.
Right.
I just wanted a tooth removed.
Right.
I had to go. You thought I was filing my 1040. It was amazing. Well, it's because all of these medical professions now recognize the connectedness from one generation to the other.
Right.
Of course, food habits, eating habits, of course, dietary habits are passed along as well, right? Germans still eat very much like Germans did, and Ukrainians very much like Ukrainians, and Mexicans very much like Mexicans. When was it? About 5 or 6 years ago that the study was done in Texas on Hispanic women who had lived in the United States, lived in Texas for a short period of time versus a longer period of time. I can't remember. It was like 10 years more or 2 years and less.
Right.
And they looked at the miscarriage rates
Right.
on those two different sections of the population.
Right.
Well, what was moving?
The corn
In
is a
that
staple of their diet.
Yeah, corn is a staple in their diet. Were they able to buy, did they buy non-GMO corn?
No.
Very difficult, very difficult. And if they thought they were, there's a very good chance it wasn't,
Right.
just by virtue of pollen and bio rape, which is happening all the time on organic acres as well as non-GMO acres.
Yeah, I watched a video of Stephanie Senoff this morning, and she said that right now, 1 in 3 Americans has diabetes. They might not know it, but they do. 1 in 3. That's number. And the show was about mitochondria. And I don't know if you saw the pictures of the cells that I took, but this is the idea is that we have a cell membrane around the cell, but the mitochondria has its own membrane, and the chloroplast has its own membrane. And when you put glyphosate in the presence of that, you can see the membranes being taken apart, rip off the cell wall, and over time, the whole cell just degrades into chaos, which, you would say it's apoptosis, but the cell dissolves into chaos, but it doesn't die.
That is consistent with what Anthony told us the other day, where apoptosis of the normal apoptosis.
Right. So when you see citrus greening and the plant turns yellow, that's when I came to the conclusion it could not, there's no lesion formation. I don't believe that the bacteria are part of it, or there would be a lesion.
Yeah.
What the yellow is the concentration and containment of the toxins, either acquired by the tree or made by the tree, because something was being blocked metabolically. And so that's all I did. And so, boom, it's, this is going to be hard to explain, I think, for some people.
Well, we're going to begin to throttle this down.
Okay.
I'm going to try to wrap this up here in the next little bit. I want to open the floor. I have a post here from Suzanne in Dallas, and she has commended to everyone a YouTube video. It's a TED Talk. I'm sure it's on YouTube. You can certainly go to the TED Talk channel. And she says that the talk is on epigenetics, which of course is DNA changes due to food, water, and air intake, pharmaceutical drugs, and other things which affect the genomic makeup of our reproductive cells.
Right.
So this is a very powerful talk. Jerry Carlson needs your phone number, Frank, so you can pass that along. In fact, Frank, you may want to post your contact information, if you're willing, up in the notes column on the public notes. So that way they'll go out today at the conclusion of this webinar session. Do we have other people that have questions? If somebody wants to turn on their mic, ask Frank questions in an open forum on the product. I've got one more, Frank. As you know, I have been a very, very outspoken advocate of the use of Presto Gold, which is a whole combination. It's kind of like a buffet of different things, originally designed to be a foliar to help plant overcome the influence of the application of glyphosate on Roundup traded plants. And I began to use it because of economics. I mean, it was, to me, I was looking at this smorgasbord and I was like, oh, this is a $4 buffet that should sell for $12, right? And to this day, of course, we know that the replicated trials that the Wellman Seeds and Agri Warehouse continue to conduct, it still is one of the most profitable things that individuals can do.
Right.
So, with regard to the makeup of Presto products, whether it's the gold formulation or the red, I know there's Prudent 44 or Prudent 42 in there.
Right.
The question is, when you made Prudent RX,
Right.
and you added the amino acids tailored for the enzymatic disruptions that take place on the influence of glyphosate, is that in any way different than what you're doing in Presto?
Yeah, it is. It is. Because I went to the USDA and I got the amino acid profile of citrus fruit.
Okay.
And that's where I got those relative ratios for the kinds of amino acids I use.
All right.
In Presto, there are some amino acids, but that would be 18 amino acids. Yeah, so that would be 18 amino acids. There's really 18 in Florida, but 3 of them are much, much higher than they're supposed to be. And that's to fill in the blank. That's to fill in what's been blocked.
All right. So the Prudent product and the combination with the Embella that's in Presto.
That Embella has a lot of amino acids.
Well, of course. And it's different than what Prudent RX is.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, there's Embella and Prudent RX.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've added the other 3 essential amino acids in
Right.
especially for citrus. I just want to make sure that nobody if anybody knew that Prudent was in, and I've explained this to my growers over and over and over again, the reason we only use this much Presto and not a gallon is because of the amount of Prudent that's present that we don't want to be in close proximity to the seed.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that no one was out there using Presto thinking that they now have Prudent RX, or maybe we should get Prudent RX. RX is really very specifically tailored to addressing the citrus greening problem in Florida or other places.
Yes, but okay, now, do you recall the pumpkin patch?
Yeah.
Where it was yellow stripes?
Yeah.
We sprayed that with it, and the plants went on very well, and they harvested. In Florida, we're doing a lot of pumpkins or watermelons and stuff like that in Florida with that mix. Anybody who puts the wrong herbicide on the wrong field, we use that mix. So we're using that mix as a cure for glyphosate issues. The RX.
In more than just citrus.
Yes, and more than just citrus.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else we need to help define in terms of tools that people might need to use in terms of fostering a crop?
I like I told you about the Argosy and the idea that you can put your insecticide in there and it'd be good for the season. I told you can put it in your herbicide and you'd be good for the season. Then that's one thing. The other thing is the NutriSmart, we know, has the ability to consume glyphosate as its sole source of carbon. So we can get our bugs to grow on the petri dish with glyphosate as its sole source of carbon. Even at I did mixes at 80-1, which would be akin to a quart in 20 gallons. And the more glyphosate we put in there, the more stuff we get growing in the petri dish. Then I had Heim repeat it, Dr. Gunner.
Yeah. So we do have every reason to believe that we can, either through use of a thing like NutriSmart, which has specific strains of yeast in it,
or things like what you were talking about for your New York farms, getting the fungus to grow at a high enough level to where they clean the soil up by themselves.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the comments I would like to leave with people this afternoon is that so far to this point, it's been very difficult to find a laboratory at any cost that will extract at the kinds of detection levels that we probably really need to be looking for in whether it's meat or milk or feeds or soils. And Bob Streit has been working on this project for some time. And now he actually has identified a group in California, which I have written to Bob and asked him to post on the notes section for everyone the name of that laboratory. If that doesn't get done and you want to know what it is, you can write to me. I have it in an email from Bob, and I can help get you that information. But if we believe what Anthony Samsel's told us, and Stephanie, and Huber, and all these experts who have been watching the fallout, that it takes very little over a long period of time to cause serious metabolic disorders and problems, then checking something and finding that we're at not detectable at 30 parts per billion doesn't really.
There's a lab in St. Louis that Monsanto uses, and they'll take you down to 0.1 part per billion.
Yeah, there's one in there, and the one in California.
Yeah.
I don't know if the people at Monsanto use that lab. I know that the person who runs the lab is a former Monsanto employee.
Right, right.
And so, yes, there are laboratories, and we are trying to get that information consolidated for those of you who want to know how safe is the milk coming out of your cows, or how safe is the water that you're drinking. The 30 parts per billion is not really sufficient to know whether or not you are putting your children, your family, yourself in jeopardy. And so that's something I'm promising you that will get followed up. And if you stay close, you will get that information on where else you can send things. And interestingly, it's a lot less money than where we've been sending stuff to Pacific Ag Labs. That's not to be derogatory in any way. It's just to tell you that it doesn't have to cost $245 a sample or more to get something run anymore. I think I need to look toward a close. And in so doing, I know that some of you have got some things on your heart that you want to say, because I've heard from some of you already. And I want to give you all an opportunity to speak your heart. I think it's a very important part of closure. The kind of program this has been, the kind of information. You've heard some people with their hearts on their sleeve, Anthony Samsel among them, Frank Dean, another among them, and Mary Lucero talking about her personal experiences. I haven't shared with you about what it's like to not go to the bathroom for 5 days and eat normally 3 times a day in my house and feel like you're a woman with a breech delivery that just will not move. It is quite horrifying. In fact, as Doug Young referred to it today, as some of the people who are involved in this webinar have some very personal experiences. And I was one of those people he was, of course, referring to, because I had shared my experiences with Doug. So for people who've been adversely affected, yes, we have a definite agenda. And there is, of course, an increasing number of people who are suffering from chronic disease and a lot of inflammation and other things that are going to lead to long-term health problems. So I want to open the floor to anyone who has anything they would like to say. I don't care what it's about. I just want you to go through what we would call, I guess, in deep sea diving, decompression, or in military, you go through a debriefing. I want to make sure that we provide an opportunity for people to debrief. I'd like to lead out, because I always believed in ladies first. I would like to lead out with Suzanne Ricketts from Dallas, because she was the first one who stepped up to the plate, and she said, I'm just burning up on the inside to tell people something. And Suzanne, I hope you're on mic or Yes, there she is. And if you have a webcam, that would be just wonderful. Not necessary.
I
Nope.
was afraid you'd ask for that, Jim.
So you got your best lips on and you're ready to talk to us, right?
Well, you bet. You bet.
Okay.
I just for everybody that I pretty much am just here as a result of Mary Lucero, and my purpose here was to just kind of help in the background, but I have a lifelong interest in nutrition and health, and had some issues as well that were going to change my life. It was not going to be life anymore if I didn't get it resolved. So I was lucky to get that resolved about 14 years ago, and I've spent that time since then trying to really understand how was I so lucky, how are so many people unlucky, and have a real struggle at that. I don't have the answer to that, but when you reach the depths of where some of us sound like we've been, the fear of going there again, not really knowing if we have the real answer, can be a real driving force. So I have been very involved in autoimmune disease issues, and just learning as much as I can about them through a Facebook page. One of them is called, it has 40,000 members. So I see these people talking about their very extreme issues that have been caused by antibiotics, by food, by other pharmaceuticals. And that's why I mentioned Jill Escher, because she has a phenomenal story, and she was lucky enough to find out what kind of drugs her mother took when her mom was pregnant. And 2 generations later, Jill, who has no history, she nor her husband have any history of autism, have 3 non-functional autistic children. So she's got her driving force as well, and she's just got a wonderful expose out there in a TED Talk, as I mentioned. So up till now, this week has just been very profound for me, because I thought I had a lot of answers, and it's everything, all the information here has just been, I haven't been in all the time, but it's been phenomenal for me, and I look forward to the replays. But and I've heard Anthony and Stephanie talk before through YouTube videos, and I would highly recommend, and Dr. Huber. But what they brought to the table this week just has really pierced my soul. And Mary and I have talked a lot about, which is the best way to go, a grassroots level or through, trying to convince the powers that be. And of course, the powers that be seem like it's a lost cause to even try. So I have high hopes for their publication that's imminently going to be released. But I also, my heart went out to Anthony, hearing his personal side as well this time, for the first time, with his wife suffering. And that has to put an additional load on him. So what Mary and I have talked about is there something we can do to possibly help him out, raising money somehow, something, and we're open to ideas. We're open to anybody else wanting to join in that effort to help pay for his lab costs. He mentioned briefly that he's trying to raise money for that. And what better way, it seems like to me that might be one of the fastest ways to get where it seems like we need to go. And I'm open to input on that, because I don't know if I'm accurate on that, but it seems to me that that's the case. To me, from a consumer's perspective, I see so many convergences going on. I see the need in this 40,000 member Facebook page every day of these people being desperate for answers to their issues, whereas I'm pretty sure it's in the food and the water that we consume and the air. So the need for what you producers are doing is so high, and I presume you know that. I don't really know, but this cross-pollination is so valuable, And I feel very cross-pollinated from this week. And it's very encouraging to me to hear what's going on out there in the producers world. And so, Jim, kudos for bringing all these people together. It's just been amazing. And I see more and more in the world too, that the boldness of people, and I think we're all pretty like-minded in that. We see it more in some than others, but the conviction of Anthony Samsel, and I'm sure Stephanie's a little more soft-spoken, but I'm sure she's right there with them. And one evidence that I saw just this week is, I don't know how many of you know who Dr. Joseph Mercola is, but he is an MD, very balanced, and I've seen him transition over the years, and he's just getting more and more bold. I think as a result partly of 13 alternative doctors being either murdered or mysteriously disappeared or strangely dying last year within a matter of a few months. So he has this week just debunked basically WebMD, one of the websites it's the highest trafficked website on health, and I guess I'm not sure exactly how to describe them, but I've known that for years myself, at least felt that way. So it was interesting to see him take such a strong stand against it. So I think all these things are very encouraging. I would love to know more about really what the pain points are for the producers. I've obviously heard some of them this week, and I don't know what the answers are, but I sure appreciate what you've done, Jim, and have been so privileged to be here this week. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. Paul said it, and I certainly can share in the sentiments. There's no good thing that dwells in me. It's by the grace of God that all of these people, he literally just sent folks into the presenter mode, willing to travel. I mean, it's just been absolute blessing. I think I have Jim Porterfield unmuted at this moment. Jim Porterfield, do you want to add something to what Suzanne has given us? We can't hear anything, Jim, if you're trying to speak to us. I see some fluttering going on, but we hear nothing. Jerry Carlson, you're unmuted as well. Would you like to take a stab at it while Jim maybe checks his mic?
Just to thank you for putting this all together, especially starting in China where you really organized it at the beginning. But just one of the highlights I'd say for us is that we connected with Frank Dean, and he is on some projects that we're not far behind in citrus. So this is very exciting to us. We've got to get in touch with that guy and learn what he's up to, because we're pretty keen. So this is the synergism you're putting together, sir.
Well, it's been an absolute delight to be a piece of getting you guys together. It gets very exciting. Jim Porterfield, we still can't hear you. Keep trying, maybe, if you can. Hopefully you can. Is there anyone else who would like to decompress? All right. Well, I want to jump here at the end, and I guess do my bit to help everyone. Larry Klein, are you up, Larry?
Yes. I just wanted to say that, the information we have somehow needs to be in some text, some written book that someone can purchase, because there are so many farmers out there that are just getting bad information from all the co-ops, all the large fertilizer companies, and they're all working on percentage of removal and glyphosate, and it's no wonder we have all this problem. And the other thing is we need to have like Frank talked about some of the solutions, but some of us are in a no-till environment where there is no tillage, and I talked a little bit, and I did check on the other product, which is a surfactant. So, I'm about ready to go back to Carmoxone or some other product for a burn down. If I'm going to take out 2,4-D, and some of us that do a lot of no-till, we tend to start to get trees in our fields also after no-till with no tillage. So, I don't know. We got a big change to accomplish, because while we're polluting all this in the dairy industry and the hog industry and, and all the manures, and it's pretty sickening, the path that we've taken in the last 15 years. And so hopefully we can reverse this trend, but it's going to take a lot of effort from a lot of people. And you're sure set out the path today.
Well, it was a monumental task to put this in print. We are going to discuss on Wednesday of next week. I believe we've set that up. Mary, we're going to be discussing ways in which we can take the collective content of this series and turn it into something that people can acquire. We're going to make all of this content available to anyone at a pretty nominal cost for the next 30 days through anymeeting.com. And Mary will be getting all that information out. I'll be emailing it to virtually everyone that I can touch through my email listings. And we'll probably be posting it on Facebook. We'll be posting it on LinkedIn in hopes that we can attract more people through social media to plug into this series. I think we're going to do a follow-up as well. I think we need to do some additional follow-up with things like the PFLA with Lance Gunderson that we ran into this morning. Maybe some very meaningful information there. We may find it. We really don't need that kind of information. We really need to just set our own labs up, maybe in our neighborhoods or in our communities, something like that, and do what Mary's taught us about yesterday. So we're going to do some follow-up. I don't know if it'll be in print, Larry. I've had a lot of people tell me, you need to take time to write a book about what you've been teaching people for 30 years. I'm still teaching it. I don't have time to write a book. So the Lord has given me good health to keep going, so I'm planning on keeping going. Jim Porterfield, it looks like your microphone might be hot now. Can you try it for us? I hear you clicking. Hello, Jim.
Would the dial-in approach be useful?
Well,
to get
I'm
off the
thinking,
mic and call?
yeah. Can you put that phone number down and the code that he's going to need to get on so we can hear what he might have to say?
Yeah, let me start copying that. But in the meantime, Jim, you might just find it by going to the top of your screen where it says More and choose your audio options. When I look, when you go to More and choose your audio options, it should give you a phone number you can dial in.
Okay, good. Good.
And I'll post that number here in just a second.
All right. I'm looking for anyone else that has something to say. All right. I just want to express my sincere thanks to my great God and Savior who's enabled us all to be here and to participate. And I didn't realize that doing something like this could be nearly as exhausting, but it has been some very good sleep, very deep sleep every night. He's given me blessed rest. I want to thank Mark Conrad, person that we've heard very little from, made a couple of remarks. Mark Conrad has been gracious in providing me with 100 megabytes of internet speed from his system that's here on this farmstead where I've been holed up since getting back in the U.S. This is where my son Christian makes his abode, and I appreciate Christian allowing me to bunk in here with him at Mark's place. My signal has been absolutely incredible, and I sure am indebted to Mark letting us be here to do this. Of course, our hostesses, Mary Lucero and Suzanne Pickett, thank you both. This would never have happened, of course, obviously, without you two. You have just been champs. I pray the Lord's blessing over both your households and over your personal lives. I want to thank all of you who spoke and made presentations. Frank, Don Huber, Anthony Samsel, Stephanie, of course, Mary, Dave Chance, and Andy Ambrioli talking to us about cover crops, Bob Strite, Bob Perry, Bob Schendelbeck, Michelle Gregg talking to us from Crop Health, and for the visuals that were sent to us from Monica Kruger. And a tremendous, I tell you what, I think I got more out of that presentation than any of the others, because we had to be forced to try to understand the studies that she was showing us in her visuals. Jared Carlson, Jeremy Schulz, Ray McDonald, Doug Young, Al Jasper. Each one of you played such a very, very important part. It would never have been what it is without you. And then, of course, I want to thank every single one of you who's been faithful. Frank Driscoll, we haven't heard one thing out of you, but I'll bet you've been here for us. And I know you've been praying for good success. And I know that your brother is probably like-minded and very much involved in holding us up before the throne of all grace. I know that there are many of you who have been praying for the success of this. And I have felt his hands holding me up. And I have heard him speaking through many of you. It's a real gift to be able to pull you all together. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. Mary, what is this you've written down here to me? Okay.
Just that I do have some things I'd like to share in closing also.
Yep. This is a good time.
Right.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm actually going to share my desktop here for a moment. And that's because some things are just easier to illustrate than to speak out loud on.
Okay.
Let me get the screen share up. But I am also just so appreciative to so many who made this thing come about, and learned a lot from this first webinar. I think Suzanne and I have spoken a little bit back and forth about the need to get information out about what's going on in our food systems. And we've experimented a little bit with webinars and this kind of thing. Am I sharing?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so you see the 4R speakers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about doing this kind of thing. We've experimented. We've got a few YouTube videos out there, and have a lot to learn about everything in the process, from broadcasting to video editing to you name it. But hearing things like maybe we should write a book about this is actually something I hope to talk about on Wednesday in terms of different ways we can get information out, because this is a phenomenal piece of content. And with that in mind, I know there was a lot of interest in a meeting in Fort Wayne, and certainly would have loved to meet all of you in person, but that didn't happen. If it had happened at most conferences, there's usually some kind of gift or recognition for the speakers. And so as things were going as the conference progressed here online, an idea struck me, particularly when Jim continued to emphasize how spirit-driven this whole process would be, because I've certainly had a lot of insights in the last few years that also tell me something beyond the science and technology is driving the change that we are seeing come about. We know that the spirit exists where matter and energy combine to form life, and more in my conceptual framework, I probably think of God as that interface between matter and energy. You know, it's that thing that's everywhere that drives life, that drives change. In the old world, we called this we perceived this interface as something that came from the top down. We saw an almighty God that lived in heaven above. And in the new world, this interface was seen from the bottom up as life arising from the land. And as I became more cognizant of the microbial world around us, I would always go back to what my father told me. Of course, he was raised with very strong Zuni and Navajo influences. And of course, would hear all the mythology and all the stories about life coming from the land. And as a scientist, I keep thinking, they were kind of right. The need to recognize both perspectives was actually conveyed very poignantly centuries ago with an image that's pretty familiar among Catholics in Latin America. And most of you have probably seen or know something about the image shown here, which gets propagated through many Catholic churches, often referred to as the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. This shows there is so much symbolism in this image that is often passed over as people just look at it as a familiar image. But basically, when this mythology arose, the Christian community saw her as the lady standing on the moon. This was the lady with the moon under her feet. And this had a very strong message for the Catholics that had arrived in the Americas. But it also had strong symbolism for the people who were already here. And basically, the moon was the god of the night, and by standing on the moon, this woman showed that she is more powerful than the god of darkness. But by looking down, she made it clear that she herself was not a god. So there's a lot of detail on that that you can find online on the webpage of a Catholic church in Austin. What I learned growing up in the Southwest is that this image was basically, she was not seen as one of the Catholic saints as much as she was seen as the image of a corn mother. And in the corn mother mythology that was very common throughout the Americas, the corn mothers were diverse. There were many of them. There was blue corn, there was white corn, there was yellow corn. And these were the women who brought life from the land to feed the people. Now, if you go through the academic discussions on food security from around the world, over and over again, they tell us that there's a strong need for women who lead in agriculture, because even Norman Borlaug would make very cognizant efforts to get the women involved in the change he was trying to bring about, because he said that's when it lasts. That's when it permeates the society. So anyway, I brought this up for a number of reasons. If you look at artwork that's common in the Southwest, and I have misplaced the name of this phenomenal artist who shows up at a festival here in southern New Mexico every fall, but he is from one of the nearby pueblos, and you see that the woman is showing corn on the left side of her cape there, of her robe. I think her story is so relevant to us today, and this whole mythology about Our Lady of Guadalupe and her presence as one of the corn mothers, simply because I think the time has come for us to rekindle this whole spirituality of or this whole concept of bringing life from the land. So for the women who spoke, and certainly for Monica Kruger, who who I hope we did justice to, I would like to, I will be sending a photo print of blue corn. This is actually a photograph of a sculpture that was hand carved by a friend of mine named Farlan Jahate. Farlan comes from a Zuni background, and his own imagery is very diverse, very complex, and very multidimensional. As you turn these sculptures and rotate them, you'll find they have carvings within carvings. And I think that's real relevant for some of what we talked about today. And for the men who spoke, you will be receiving the fishing bear. And again, this was carved by Farlan, and shows that a lot of times the brotherhood associated with the bear ties into the fact that we're both omnivores. And so the dietary practices really aren't that different. But he shows the bear who is bringing fish to feed the people. So I just wanted to share those. These will be signed, and they will be exclusive to Farlan has given me the exclusive rights to share these images with people who are developing our food systems. And so there will be a limited number of these going out, and they will always have the same symbolism tied to them. And I hope, Jim, you've got all the relevant mailing addresses so I can get these. I know some people registered with their addresses, but we didn't require it.
Well, I'm certain that if I don't have the appropriate addresses, Mary, that I will be able to get them so that you can fulfill what you desire in your heart to do. That's great. We had done, my wife and I, as we contemplated for weeks and weeks, actually doing this in Fort Wayne at the Grand Wayne Convention Center. We were thinking of gifts, all the time. And of course, then when it was obvious that there was no way it was going to happen in person, I just was like, now what do I do, And I do have a very special gift for one of our very special people, a man who has suffered the slings and arrows of adversity for a lot of years, for just basically bearing the truth in his soul. It is a drawing which my wife did many years ago, shortly after we were married, in fact, about 30 years ago. And it is a timeless image which she rendered of the Lord Jesus Christ as he gave up his life, as he gave his last breath forth, as he gave his life back into his Father's care. And the title of it is For the Joy. And it's from the scriptures, of course. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, forsaking the shame and the disgrace that came with it. He suffered for us. And so it is that this is going to go to Dr. Huber. I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but he was in an accident a little over a year ago, at which time he was befriending a man who had run off the road in front of his house. He was trying to extricate the man's car with the chain hooked to the back of his tractor, which had a rotary mower mounted on the three-point hitch. For some of you, this picture becomes very vivid. You can see this. It's about 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. It's dark. He's got his tractor lights on. I don't know how many other lights were on. Another car came speeding down the road and hit Dr. Huber's tractor, massively dislocating where the rotary mower was, overturning the tractor, casting him forth from the tractor into the field. Don told me this a year ago in December, that he read the report from an EMT. it said, successfully resuscitated. He had a hole in the back of his head. It was about 4 inches in diameter. And you heard him. He went forth for about 2 hours with us, and he was stronger than he was a year ago. This man is absolutely dedicated to the truth, and he won't stop. Bob Kramer threatened Don that he wouldn't have anything to say once that Bob Kramer had retired, because Bob was just going to go out there and blow all this information out that he'd been holding for years, and that no one would have time to listen to Don. That hasn't really happened, although I love Bob Kramer and I love the spirit that's in the man. And I pray that someday God moves on, that however it is, that, the truth of all things persists. And so we wanted to recognize Don that way, and we're going to do it. It'll come to him from China, but he's going to get this gift. But I think the biggest gift we all have is a desire for the truth. And that's something that's hidden in the very essence of who a man or a woman is. And I've been so blessed and so privileged to be yoked together with people who are so dedicated to truth that I don't have words to really express it. I owe a debt of thanks to a real special brother named Dave Chance, who said to me the other day in a text, he said, I'm reminded, based on something that happened in the first or second day, he said, I'm reminded of 2 Peter chapter 3. And so, in deference to my brother who is not with us because he had other things he had to do today, I want to read at least a part of 2 Peter chapter 3. Remember, we're listening to an ignorant, coarse, old fisherman here, writing under inspiration of the Spirit of God. Beloved, I now write to you this second epistle, in both of which I stir up your pure minds by way of reminder, that you may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets, and of the commandment of us, the apostles of the Lord and Savior, knowing this first, that scoffers will come in the last days, walking according to their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. For this they will willfully forget, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, by which the world that then existed perished. How did that happen? Okay. Anyway. Being flooded with water. But the heavens and the earth, which are now preserved by the same word, are reserved for fire until the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. I might mention here that in the Revelation, it talks about those that God will deal with, who have defiled the earth, who have done bad things to God's good earth. Beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering toward us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance, which is frankly nothing more than the knowledge of the truth. And the truth is that we're all sinners and that we're all in need of forgiveness. And so I know it's very popular today in evangelical circles for everyone to be reminded that you need to get your house in order. I think we have observed in this course of this webinar series that there is great chaos in the earth. There is great deception. There is great powers of darkness that are working. and we need to be very alert. We need to be prepared for virtually anything that could happen. And there's only one ultimate preparation, and that is to be in right relationship with the God who created this whole thing and who now still sustains it with his word, the power of the word of his power. So thank you, Dave Chance, for speaking to my heart through your words and what you were being reminded of. And a special thanks to every single one of you who's been with us in part or the whole time. May the Lord continue to bless you and prosper you and everything you contemplate doing and everything you put your hand to. Mary, thank you so much. The gifts were absolutely beautiful. And you've stood in the gap in more ways than one. I'm losing track how many times you've been able to just keep putting this all together. It's just absolutely a masterpiece. Thank you. Thank you, every single one. Any last thing you'd like to say, Mary, before we sign off?
I'm good. I appreciate it. I appreciate the entire experience.
We are blessed. We are blessed of all people. Thank you, Lord. God bless you all. Signing off. Thanks, Mary. God bless you. Thanks, Suzanne.
You're going to go home and take a nap now?
Believe it or not, I have to get ready to go to Illinois first thing tomorrow morning. Wisconsin.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got to head up toward Green Bay tomorrow.
Well, you have a safe trip.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jim.
Mary.
It's been great.
God bless you too, Suzanne. It
Thank
has
you.
been.
Oops, we're still recording.
Yes, I tried to turn it off, couldn't get it.